Good morning, friends. What you see on the screen here is you can think of it as a kind of a spaceship like out of Star Wars or something. I call it the quad pod. My friend Hal did it. Hollister, Hop David. It's not Hal, excuse me, Hop. Hop did this a long time ago. I haven't met Hop, but he's done some really useful art. And this kind of shows you how using retro rockets you could get this thing to go anywhere, right? I mean, at least in theory, it'd probably tumble a lot, but actually, if you shoot three at once, that would stabilize it. Anyway, it's another way of thinking about the quad rays and how it could serve as an origin, a coordinate system, and so on. I was talking about quad rays recently. I was kind of going down a list of places where we could, if we wanted to, jump over to the Bucky stuff, but don't. And anyone who watches these in the future is probably going to think, I'm not always that effective. Like, I got into straight ad hominem when I was doing like an attack on the Bolton tapeworm rant. I just dove in there kind of with Tucker Carlson and name calling, right? He called Bolton a tapeworm, and I sound like Captain Haddock in the Tintin comics, right? I just spewed out a whole string of insults. And if you're a debate coach or something, you know that that's considered, I wouldn't say it's not a no-no, but you get points off. If you want to be effective, you need to follow certain rules for debate points. Now, another point I'll make that's somewhat connected. I may not know how exactly at the moment, but Glenn and I yesterday we watched Triumph of the Will, which is a very famous Nazi Party propaganda film. It's quite long. I watched the whole thing. It doesn't have any overvoice. This guy is a film critic, and it was pretty interesting. I didn't quite like how narrowly he defined propaganda to begin with, to only say governments can do it. But that's okay. That's just his view. And I think that's what the point I want to make is I'm sometimes just shooting my retro rockets, right? Like I have a sense, let's go back to the GST diagram, opportunity cost, right? I think it's all about language and how we think, what our programming is basically. And the reason many people are dying um, and having bad lives compared to what we could have, compared to the much better planet and situation we could have, it's about our programming. It's not about any fundamental lack of resources. Like we've already mined so much metal, there's metal all over the place on the surface of the earth. So, sending people down into mines, we don't have to do as much in some ways. And you can say, well, that's a bad thing. How are the miners going to have a living and stuff? Or you can say, look, we can benefit from all this work we've already done. We've done so much work. Now we've turned a lot of that metal into like aircraft carriers and battleships and stuff. So that's where the metal is sitting, but that's still usable metal, right? If we ever get around to needing metal, we don't have to dig it up. We can just go to the ship graveyards and the airplanes. Man, there's a lot of airplane graveyards. Now, I don't know what we can rescue from all this, but I would think recycling, that would be all by itself a major industry, bigger than it is now, in a world that's more interested in making the world work and less interested in making it work just for me, and who the hell cares about all those other people. The thing is, that's a vicious cycle, right? So I think I fire off my rockets because I'm just this little dude. And I think that was Fuller too. Like he would get polemical in synergetics as this one guy, probably the only guy pretty much, who's offering this new paradigm of a tetrahedron based sort of geometry. You don't find, he's not a part of a large literature or anything. So he sounds off. He mocks. I think maybe that's partly why Applewhite was attracted to him. He's a pretty brave little guy going around the world sounding off, living by his principles and so on. So I admire him for that. But the thing is, then you read Synergetics and it's got these sort of um, polemics, attack mode kind of. It's not. It's well written. It's not name calling. It's good stuff. But then people who read it are like defensive because, oh, wait a minute, he's attacking the XYZ coordinate system. We're never going to give that up. How stupid. I mean, we've got thousands of years, we've got all our software, we've got everything. And here's this guy coming on here with quad rays or something, which, by the way, Bucky did not have or invent. That came later. And what does he think? He thinks we're going to replace everything we're doing with quad rays? Are you kidding me? And that's right. No. No, right? It's more like just a language game in the Wittgenstein sense. I would put quad rays in the philosophy department and use it to discuss, terminology. Where does math come from? What are the foundations? And you may find some practical and useful applications for quad rays. I did, in terms of giving all the CCP balls integer coordinates, positive integer coordinates. And I'm just this one guy, and I'm not claiming to be a genius either. So, same thing with the concentric hierarchy of volumes. It's like I share the polemical tradition here. The techno-invective that I engage in has a lot to do with being one of the very few people out of billions who has, for the moment anyway, the time and space to do anything about that, right? And I think that's a leverage point. And again, back to this, I think the language that we're programmed in is why we're vectoring, a lot of us are, towards dystopia oblivion. This is our aircraft carrier in the Straits of Hormuz right now, trying to spark a war if only it could, right? Not that the people on that ship necessarily want war, it's just there are certain oligarchs, certain movie directors, as I call them, who can't wait to direct the great tragedy in which they will star as the great leaders. And those who survive their bunkers and come out in the future with a lot fewer people in a kind of radioactive urban areas around their post-apocalypse, post-Armageddon, maybe they'll look back in thankfulness at the great leaders who took us through that. But I'm saying we don't have to go through that. That would be a horrible opportunity cost. But we're already paying a horrible opportunity cost. See, as the language improves, your horizons of possibility get pushed out to where when you have this very restricted horizon of opportunity, it may look like the only realistic way forward. Like if you're Winston Churchill or something, you think, I have to control the lines of supply. I must be the emperor or whatever, right? The UK must be the empire. Of course, by that time, it was just trying to hold on for dear life more than that. But so that's dystopian, right? And then you push out the possibilities, and wow, we could actually go in this direction instead. But not if we keep thinking like this, right? So the opportunity cost is great. And so I permit myself techno-invective sometimes. I sound sometimes like Bucky. I get kind of militant, strident, whatever. But remember, I'm thinking in terms of namespaces. Like it's not either or. I think that's the biggest pitfall kind of in thinking is either or. Just because you give space and time to something like Synergetics as one more philosophy on the shelf, worth reading, interesting ideas, let's mine it, let's get some value out of it, then it's like, well, no, he's attacking the XYZ coordinate system. We can't do that. And it's like, yes, you can do both. You can attack the XYZ coordinate system and then you can turn around and use it, which is what I do. I teach, enough linear algebra to get the machine learning stuff going. I understand about n-dimensional polytopes. I understand about what Coxeter was doing. And remember, Bucky dedicated Synergetics to Coxeter. and they got to be friends for the most part. You can read about their somewhat rocky relationship. It started out rocky, but the misunderstandings got ironed out. I don't think Coxeter ever believed that going with the tetrahedron the way Fuller did was going to be a big boon to humanity. But on the other hand, I don't know if he ever had much time to really think about that either. It is an interesting question. What would happen if we put Fuller in the curriculum more? And I'm hoping at least the Quaker schools will do that, and that some braver philosophers will take it on more intelligently than they have. It's a hope. And I think that's all I can do right now is hope, and also sometimes get kind of techno-invective is what Applewhite called it. Let's see, I'll close with that if I can find the right post there. Like, he was somewhat ambivalent too about me being combative, because I can mess stuff up if I kind of combat the wrong people. Like, you really have to know who your enemies are if you're going to be combative. On the other hand, I think he liked that I was combative. So Applewhite was kind of on the fence sometimes about what I was doing. I think he got to like it more because he realized I'm only combative sometimes. Yeah, here he says, where's my first? Do I have anything? I don't. Okay, here we go. What is Technoinvective? So on July 21st, which is 97, so we're going back a long ways, pretty much this month, almost this day, but in 97, he writes in all caps, Kirby has given us a new art form that I describe as techno-invective. It is not helpful to fragment the Bucky legacy at Applewhite. So it's like, if I start, and I've got this Japanese guy with the red eyes, and he's looking like, I put this page together based on, and there's some guys doing judo or something, based on this quote, I put this together. And I think because he was watching over my shoulder, and he was watching me like get into verbal sparring, verbal fights, debates with this, that, and the other person. And he considered it an art form, which I took as a compliment, but then I also see a caveat here. He's worried that I might fragment the Bucky legacy. That was a long time ago, so people can judge if I performed well, but I think I did what I could based on my position. Like, I'm the only guy I know who had a pretty good philosophy education at Princeton University, then got into synergetics right out of the university, and ever since have just tried to create some space for it. And but a double A battery is what I call myself. The main danger, I think, is that it is just me so much. I mean, other people work on this, but they don't get down to the basics. I think a lot of times they want to go on and be famous. It's like, oh, Fuller got to be famous doing this. I could do a map too, or I could do this or that and be famous in the way Fuller was famous. And I'm more interested in, wait, let's take advantage of that he got himself to be famous. Let's take it. We haven't used up the Fuller value yet. Like, we don't need another Fuller yet, because we haven't even, like, don't ask for seconds if you haven't eaten your first course or something like that. We haven't finished dealing with what he did. So I'm not really looking for the next Buckminster Fuller, and I don't think of myself as that. I'm more of a guy on the side commenting and saying, hey, I've been through the best education the world has to offer, and it didn't have much space for this stuff. Let's make some space. New circuit designs for motherboard Earth. The icon's missing and the word icon has appeared instead, so that's kind of dumb. But this kind of shows you that I've put a lot of eggs in this GST basket, where I think that we do have the energy and we're making movies. This is the planet Universal Studios, basically. What we do is we leave records for the future, like Triumph of the Will, right? Recommended. Just to learn about movies. And I don't want to be a Nazi. I don't want to be Triumph of the Will, but I do think asylum cities that we do need assembly spaces. We need places for people. Like we see these drone views of people doing these dances. People like to get out in large numbers and do like these maneuvers and then watch themselves on TV later. So large assemblies of people all doing the same thing, I don't all just immediately say that's horrible because I've seen very, very benign dancing like that band. What is it? The one that went on the airplane in Russia with zero gravity. They made another. Is it called OK Go? They made another video of a lot of Japanese schoolgirls dancing, and they shot drone shots. It's like I think Asylum City, you need a lot of room for people to do group exercise sometimes. So when I see these designs for refugee camps, there's no space to do anything, right? It's just let's coop you up in this cage because it's the whole idea is to punish you for being in America, right? Even though Americans were here before, have been here all along, they're getting punished now because the Europeans have gotten stronger and they're planning to close the borders and make that kind of thinking take over. You know, it's like, oh, you like open borders. There's never been any other kind of borders around here. And the states themselves don't have fences. So, you know, private property owners, they want to make this like the reason people left England is because of what people are trying to do to this country. All right, talk to you later.